going on, everybody? Welcome to Beyond the Box Score right here on the Bench Mob. It's my pleasure to present this episode 4 of our podcast today. Here, it's December 1st in Melbourne. It's officially summer. It's been an unconventional start to the season. It's been raining. It's been miserable weather outside, but we're here to continue on the grind. It's a Friday night here in Melbourne, so we're pumped to get this next episode out for you guys and, continue on from where we left off and chop up everything that happened in the last week in the association. Marcus, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Busy day at work today. New job at some bar, learning how to do drinks and stuff. So that was all right, I guess. Don't love it though. I love doing this. So coming in, filming every week for you guys. Obviously, we're still on the road to 1K, and by the time this is uploaded, probably well and truly, we will probably be there. And that's pretty cool because I guess we could officially call ourselves YouTube partners.
100%. Yeah, it's a really exciting time. I just remember the first time we collabed on a video and, I still remember our thumbnails and how we had like a million words in them. And
put them on the screen right now.
Yeah, it was a bit of a laugh. But all in all, I think from where we started to where we're at now and, how much consistency we have shown, we've had ups and downs, we've had technical issues along the way, but we're so close to that 1,000 subs. So I'm really excited and I can't wait to see where this whole YouTube journey takes us and I guess, where we can really take this whole channel and in terms of the content creation space for all things basketball. So I'm excited. I know you're excited. So without further ado, let's get right into episode 4 and we'll obviously start off with our key takeaways from the week.
Let's get it. Okay, so I'll kick it off with the first key takeaway, and that is, I guess, the Detroit Pistons are really, really bad at basketball, no secret. When you're losing by like 30 or 20 to the Washington Wizards and the Lakers, obviously the Lakers are pretty solid, but I think they came off a 30-point loss.
44 points to the Sixers,
yeah. 44 points to the 76ers with a healthy Anthony Davis and LeBron James, a healthy team. Only guy who was really missing, I think, was Vando, who's been out the whole season. Not a great look. The record of the Pistons, what would they be now? Like
2-17.
2-17.
Yeah, so they're on a 16-game losing streak. So it's no secret I think it's one of the longest active losing streaks in the entire NBA right now. So it's not a good start, not a good sign for Pistons fans. And I know we have like a love-hate relationship with the Pistons fans on this channel, but I think the reality has set in with your team. And right now, you don't really have an identity. I feel like you have all these pieces without any true meaning. You don't have a real direction with where you want to go. I guess I understand Cade is still pretty fresh in his NBA career because he missed that whole year. And then you've got Azar Thompson, who's one of the most promising rookies, and I really like him on both sides of the ball. But the one thing about his game is he can't shoot, so you're limiting yourself with your floor spacing there. And then Jaden Ivey coming off the bench was a pretty...
He's having a killer year as well.
Exactly. It was a pretty confusing move on Monty Williams' part there because then, he becomes disgruntled and you play Killian Hayes, who's had 0 to no impact, playing 25 minutes a night, and he's barely, scratching the surface of any statistical impact on the box score, and obviously even beyond that, just from the eye test. And he has his moments, but I just don't understand what's going on with this Pistons team. I get they might be tanking to try and get more assets, but I don't really know if they need more assets because they've already got a big logjam at every position. You got Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, James Wiseman, Jalen Duren in the front court, and then you got in the back court, you got and on the wings, Marvin Bagley, Azar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Killian Hayes, Marcus Sasser, then Bojan Bogdanovic obviously is out at the moment with an injury, and I think
one trade piece.
Yeah, correct. And right now, if you try and trade him away, no team's going to want him. Obviously, because he's injured, and 2, can they trust him then to be on the court when he does move teams eventually, if that's the direction that the Pistons want to take? But yeah, it's all over the shop right now, and I don't like to slander a team, or I don't like to badmouth any team in particular. But yeah, it's no secret the Pistons are awful right now, and if you're losing to the Washington Wizards, my own team at heart, it's never a good sign. Like Marcus mentioned at the top of the segment there. So
you know what it is? It's like they're like the last chance you of the NBA. Like everybody is technically on the last chance. Well, not last chance, but like last chance of being a star. I guess Marvin and then
James Wiseman,
Killian Hayes. So that it's just a lot of guys floating around who once upon a time had potential, but Yeah, I think we've talked so much about Pistons in other episodes previously. I hate bad-mouthing them because I've caught my fair share of damn near abuse, to be honest. Damn near death threats at my head due to previous videos about the Pistons. But yeah, Pistons fans, just know at heart, I'm with you guys for the long run. But let's be honest, like, your team kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie.
That's going to be a screen grab from Pistons fans. Are going to screen record that and come back at you when they're winning a championship now. But moving on anyways, because we don't want to slander the Detroit Pistons any more than we already have. Second key takeaway of the week: the Lakers' gap between their best and worst basketball is humongous. Like, when they're playing at their best, when they're flowing, the chemistry's all there, and everyone's clicking on all cylinders. They are one of the hardest teams to stop, and they can beat anyone in the entire association. But when their wheels are falling off, when things aren't going their way, like we mentioned just before, they get 40 balled by a potential championship contending team. And if you're trying to be in the hunt and you're trying to call yourselves a contender out west, and in fact in the entire NBA, you can't be losing games by 40 points, especially when it comes to the playoffs. That's just going to hurt you in the long run. So, I mean, on one positive note on the Lakers, you see it when they play in the in-season tournament. They've been killing it. They're 4-0. They're into the knockout stages now. But just outside of that in-season tournament play, they've been god-awful. So I'd love to hear your take on this, because you are obviously a Lakers fan at heart, but at the same time, you've sort of slowly been frustrated with this organization. So it'd be interesting to see your take on their current state of affairs.
I just don't know where we currently stand with the roster. Not the roster, just with our organization direction. Like, obviously we're trying to compete for a championship here, but do we continue to name chase and just, go the route? Obviously, no secret, the Bulls reached out to the Lakers about Zach LaVine, and they said, if there's no Aussie Reeves or no Rui Hachimura, we don't really want to do a deal there. And then reportedly, the Lakers were more interested in DeMar DeRozan than Zach LaVine, which I really don't understand. If you're going to get Zach or either guard, why you wouldn't go with Zach, who's more of a three-point shooter. But yeah, anyway, I just don't really know where we stand. I guess when Vando comes back, it'll be a bit of a different dynamic. But I think overall, it's nothing to do with the typical Lakers thing where they use players as scapegoats. Like, D'Angelo Russell is having a really, really efficient and a really good season. I think he's averaging 16 and 6. Correct me if I'm wrong. And damn near 40% from three. He went off last game. We were talking about that the other day, just how good D'Angelo Russell is at the moment as a basketball player. And we saw in the offseason, he said, I want to be like that guy, Derek White. And no, he's not quite Derek White on the defensive end. I think the effort's there. I think D'Angelo Russell, he's willing to buy into a team who wants, to compete for a championship. He's not a selfish guy. It's just really weird seeing LeBron and D'Lo, the dynamic there. Sometimes LeBron, you could see he's kind of frustrated, and they're often explaining things, which we all do, even at any level. You do it with your mates on the court. It's nothing personal. It's basketball at the end of the day. It's just, I don't know what this team is. Are we competitive? Are we not?
I think he's one of the players, though, that has that up and down sort of form and, the troubles with his consistency. Like I said, I know it was the Pistons, but he goes on and drops 35 and, arguably the best player on the court. And then the next game he goes completely missing. And, same thing can be said about Austin Reeves. Same thing can be said about Rui Hachimura. All these next up kind of guys. We know what to expect from AD when he's healthy. We know what to expect from Bron, even if he is sometimes on a minutes restriction, or obviously he's aging, he's still playing, out of his mind. It's just the next guys up on that roster that need to step up at any given time. And if it's not one of the guys stepping up, it has to be the next guy. It can't be all 3 or 4 of these guys that are playing, that role as like a fill-in third option kind of thing to go missing on any given night, because it's not going to cut it, and the Lakers aren't going to make any noise if that continues to happen. So fingers crossed they can turn it around. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all things play out going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I will say this, in terms of D'Angelo Russell, I've been a Russell fan for a while, so maybe I'm, glazing him too hard right now. But yeah, ever since he was a rookie, just because I was a Lakers fan, was a Kobe fan, don't need to hear the whole story. But I'm looking at it now, 18 about 50% from the field, 42% from the three, 7 assists, almost 4 rebounds, and almost a steal and almost a block. For D'Angelo Russell to do that, this could be I'm not saying this is the best version. Obviously, Brooklyn, D'Lo, we would all have our eyes there. But in terms of just being able to adapt to a system, I think this is the best D'Lo version we've seen of that. Because at Minnesota, I think he was willing to buy in, but circumstances kind of difficult with Anthony Edwards, Cat, Gobert. There's a lot going on, but I think D'Lo's certainly matured, and I don't even know if he cares that much about being valued as a third option. He's just he wants to do whatever he could to win. Maybe he's always been like that, but the narrative, at least I feel has been D'Lo's kind of a selfish. I don't know. People don't like him, maybe because of that swaggy P.
Just about to say that. I was like, that. It's always one negative thing in a player's career that people remember rather than what they did. It's the same thing with Gilbert Arenas, obviously, with the whole gun incident and, bringing the guns in the locker room. People forget how potent of a scorer he was. A 60 ball on Kobe and the Lakers in 06, top 3 in scoring in his prime. This guy was a killer, and it's the same as D'Lo. We know at his best, D'Lo is an absolute killer out in the court, and he's an underrated playmaker. I remember coming out of Ohio State, that was one trait that teams really were big on him, is the fact that he could facilitate and really run an offense, being 6'5" and being a taller sort of point guard. So yeah, it's interesting how his career's kind of yo-yoed, but I think he's the key to the Lakers as much as Austin Reeves is, as much as like Rui Hachimura or any of those other dudes that are obviously playing their role alongside AD and Bron, but just have to see how it plays out. And, I think, again, they started off the season slow last year and look where it ended up for them. So I don't think it's do or die right now, but, it could get to that point at some part of the season if they don't figure things out.
Yeah. I'll move forward to D'Lo's former teammate. His key takeaway. Julius Randle has just got me in an absolute whirlwind. What is this guy? Is he a star, superstar, all-star? I don't know. But anyway, he's just confusing the hell out of me because obviously he started so slow, but then he has games against the Hornets. He had 25 points, 20 rebounds, and I feel like overall, Julius Randle, what I'm trying to say is if he does the little things like rebound, play defense, without all the scoring, he's aggressive on the glass. He's like the perfect player in my eyes that you would want on your team. But he's just a bit of a laughingstock sometimes. He doesn't really want to rebound, doesn't want to play defense, wants to take those weird spin fadeaway mid-ranges like he's Kobe. And obviously, yes, he is a tough shot maker, but sometimes he kills the flow of the offense. But then at the same time, he can win you a ball game. So it's I just don't know what to make out of him. What is Julius Randle at this current point in time? And the Knicks are playing well. I think they're 10-6, 10-5, but
he's another player like D'Lo that we just mentioned who is too much of a yo-yo player with his consistency. He has all NBA first team potential at times with the way he plays. Last year he dropped the 57-point game and, it was lights out, but I think he settles sometimes for too many threes. With a guy with that much athleticism, with, that much size and strength, for a guy to be settling and to becoming 2-3 point happy, I think it just takes away from his own game, and hence why his efficiency goes down because he's taken almost dumb shots from the arc. They're not even wide open ones. They're like contested step backs.
Literally spin fadeaways.
Yeah, he's not Luka. You know what I mean? Luka's the opposite. I'd much rather Luka doing a step back 3, tough shot creation than a guy like Julius Randle who, like I said, who's got that physical stature and that, physical advantage against a lot of players in this league. So at the end of the day, as long as, like I said, if he's the kind of player that can bridge the gap between his best and worst basketball and, have that same mindset night in, night out, he's going to be a big asset to the Knicks. But then if he doesn't pull his head in, if he doesn't, like I said, start to play the right way and the way we know Julius Randle can play, it's going to be a detriment to them. And I think it might possibly be time to part ways with them. But we'll just have to see how things play out with what the Knicks want to do and how their next few games go in terms of the consistency and, if they can get wins on the board and start to put it together, then I think Julius Randle may be safe, but I think it's do or die this season. And if they don't have any playoff success or if they don't get any further than they did last season, you might look at Julius Randle as being out the door of Madison Square Garden.
Yes, definitely a weird one because basically I 100% agree with where you were heading because to me, Randall is like what? He's like Zion. He should be like Zion. He should be attacking the glass, scoring in the paint, not shooting 40% from the field. There's no way on earth. Why is Julius Randle shooting 40% from the field when he can score that well in the paint at such a high level with those floaters, with those, close mid-range shots, not those in the post fadeaways, deep threes. Like, that's not who Randle is, and that's not what he should aspire to be. If you just stick to your game, originally out of Kentucky, at the Lakers early days, at New Orleans, even obviously his career years at the Knicks, you can dominate every single night. But there's no reason why Randall should have games where he is struggling. There's just no way. So, yeah, we had to address this.
I just think it like I said, it just comes down to shot creation, and that's not shot selection. It's nothing to do with Julius Randle and saying we can't take 3-pointers.
IQ player.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's not that he can't take threes, and we're not saying like don't take 3-pointers at all, because that the whole point of today's NBA is to stretch the floor out, stretch the defense, obviously make him guard you higher up the court, which obviously increases the spacing. But at the same time, there's a difference between taking 10 or 11 threes, like your Curry or Halliburton, etc., or you're a guy like or taking 2 threes, 3 threes, making all of them when they're open, when they're on. You know what I mean? So I think that's the difference between him being at his best and his worst. But like I said, I think he's a really great player, and I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to sound like we're slandering Julius Randle, but I just think he's the key to them having success come playoff time, because we know what to expect from Jalen Brunson. We know what to expect from the other guys on that roster who play their role, and Mitchell Robinson out there rebounding like an animal. Same with Isaiah Hartenstein, Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, those kind of players. I think, we know what to expect from them as role players, but Julius Randle as that second star, or as that almost first option to Jalen Brunson, even though we know that Jalen Brunson's now the first option officially, he needs to do better. So, yeah, hopefully he turns the corner and see what happens with the Knicks going forward. But for that week, obviously, that's what we did notice. But my next point, anyway, my next key takeaway is the Bucks look more and more legit now that Giannis and Dame are starting to put it together with the chemistry, finding out, obviously, how to play with one another. I think no one's taking a back seat now, kind of, if that makes sense. I feel like when it's time to go, Giannis puts the foot down. He looks like his same old self again. He's attacking the rim. He's being confident in, not having to give the ball up to Dame. And Dame's the same thing when they know they need crunch time points, when they know they need someone to step up in the clutch. Dame is doing that. And I think they've bridged the gap with their best and their worst in terms of not only their offensive play, but their defense. But also for me, I think there's Brook Lopez stepping up and, really playing a part. I think that's helped with the Milwaukee Bucks' success. He had a 39-point game the other day. He's blocking shots. He's looking like Brook Lopez of last year, which put him into Defensive Player of the Year candidacy. But I think, they've started to turn a corner anyways.
Yeah, 100%. Giannis is playing like an MVP once again. So good to see, because there was a minute where I did think Giannis has taken a backseat to Dame and he's not really going to be that dominant player that he was. But he's been on an absolute tear, scoring like 30 every single night for the past week. 30 plus, 40. I think he had one game, he had 41. He had a game, he had 5 blocks. Killing on the glass, like you said, scoring in transition. And Dame over time, he's got that, 21 points per game to about 23. And he was shooting like 21% from 3. Now he's shooting like in the 30s, I think. So 10 plus more percent. Hey, that's why the Bucks are winning. They're slowly figuring it out, much like D-Wade, LeBron at the time at the Heat. So, yeah, I think Bucks are still, 100% championship contenders, obviously, out the East. And it's just terrific to see them two slowly clicking, but certainly not the final product that the Bucks will be long-term. Obviously, it's super early, but it's good to see the signs are definitely showing for sure.
100%. I don't really have much more to add to that. I think we summed it up pretty well.
So the next key takeaway it goes along the lines of LaMelo Ball. And the key takeaway, I guess, LaMelo, we all know he was on an absolute tear before he got injured, playing like damn near if not the best, top 3. Obviously, Hallie's there, Curry's there. There's a lot of good point guards, but top 3 to 5 best point guards in the league. And for someone who just made our top 10 point guard list, that is really good. And for someone of that age, I think he's like a year older than me. He must be like 22. He was killing it. But I guess the thing is, over the course of his NBA career, injuries have been a thing, ankle injuries specifically. And yeah, it's no secret that, yeah, he's been injured. So if these injuries continue to linger with the ankle, will this, I guess, deter his career trajectory? And is he doing enough in the offseason, to prevent these types of injuries from happening? Because obviously, yeah, you got to sprain your ankle, but I feel like it's a lot more than that. It's like tendons, and it's not looking real good for LaMelo. But I guess that was a key takeaway.
Yeah, for sure. And adding to that, I follow this guy on Instagram. His name's Mike Guevara or something like that, and he's a NBA strength and conditioning trainer. So he's not really a skills guy. He's more like injury prevention, strength, stuff of that nature. And the stuff that he goes through with like guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, Jared Vanderbilt, like he's doing like kettlebell walks up a hill to like increase ankle mobility, ankle strength. He's doing all these wacky exercises that seem a little bit unconventional, but he's a big believer in all like injuries start from the feet. And if your feet aren't 100%, and if you're, they're not strong, or, the joints around the foot and the ankle aren't stabilized, then that's where the rest of the injuries come, like, overuse, etc. So he's a big advocate on that. And was it maybe the overuse training from LeVar Ball at a young age? Was it the Triple B shoes that he wore, obviously, in certain years when he was in high school? Is it the lack of off-season preparation? I'm not saying he doesn't work hard. I'm not saying he doesn't put in the necessary work, but does he do the right work? Does he do the stuff that you need to sustain an 82-game season? And then if you add into the playoffs, if they make it, you're looking at almost 100 games a season. And for a guy like LaMelo Ball, with the amount of injuries he's had, I think that should have been number one priority in the top of his list to come back. And could it be his new shoes, the Pumas? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of factors that could come into play here. We don't really know. But all I want to say is, like, if he does put that work in and he does commit himself to all of that diligent injury prevention, that, prehab, rehab sort of stuff, then these injuries might not be as significant. Instead of keeping him out for 3-4 weeks for an ankle sprain, you're looking at maybe like a week injury or whatever. So it's concerning, but I think, hopefully long-term, a guy of LaMelo Ball's stature and talent, he doesn't hinder him, like you said, and, he can have a long, prosperous career because he's damn near too good to not be playing night in, night out on the NBA hardwood. So hopefully he turns the corner, and fingers crossed the injury is not severe and he'll be back out in no time, and, playing with that flair and excitement that we know and what we love to see from him night in, night out.
What was this guy's name again? The trainer?
Mike Guevara.
I need to get on it, because not that I'm like a professional basketball player or whatever, but I feel like my ankle's a little bit fucked up. I'm not going to lie. Like, I can rotate it this way, but then this way. I've just never, ever since I don't know, I think I sprained my whole foot, and it's just like the instability, it's there. So I need to get on these exercises.
Yeah, he trains Mike James as well, the one that plays at Monaco that was on the Brooklyn
Nets. He plays with Kemba?
Yeah. So he's another guy that Mike guy trains. So the results speak for themselves. I mean, the Vander one, it's not a good sign because Vander's injured, but like Jalen Green's healthy. Fred VanVleet's healthy. Spencer Dinwiddie's healthy for the most part. And I think it's a lot of these guys who have had certain injuries. So yeah, the guys that have had certain injuries, they go to him obviously to try and prevent further damage or further instability with the rest of their body. But moving on to my next point. Enough of Mike Guevara shout out anyway. USC's Isaiah Collier looks like a surefire top 3 pick. All we need to see from him is consistency as a jump shooter a little bit, and I think the change of pace. I think he plays a lot of times at one pace, which in the NBA, it's very easy to guard and it's very predictable. And he needs to clean up his assist to turnover ratio. He's currently averaging like 4 assists per game, nearly 19 points with the Trojans, but he's averaging 5.5 turnovers, which again, I don't necessarily think that is a true definition of who he is as a player. He's 6'5". He's got a great physical makeup. And I just think, if he can clean up those turnovers, which at the next level is going to be a bit different, I think the game's a lot more suited to him. in the NBA because there's more spacing. You know, it's more up and down in transition, a lot of pick and roll, and there's more adept role guys who can catch and, you know, finish around the rim, and a lot more athletic sort of bigs. So I think he'll be fine, but it'll be interesting to see how the rest of his season progresses, because right now he's projected to be the number 1 pick in the 2024 NBA draft as per ESPN. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Marcus, because we obviously discussed him early on in our journey on this channel, and it's good to see he's progressed along now and, you know, been highly rated by a lot of the major media outlets for the draft next year.
I guess for me, the 5.5 turnovers per game. Well, yeah, 5.5, correct?
Yeah.
I feel like that it will slowly disintegrate. I guess when Bronny James comes back, he'll probably be the lead point guard. I expect Collier's scoring production to maintain or at least increase. I love it. I feel like, I don't know if he's my for sure top number 1 pick. Like for sure, I think Alex Sarr, Ron Holland, I don't know, Buzelis, I'm still kind of on that train. I don't know yet. Not
sold on him just yet, but I've liked what I've seen from him anyway. And then you've also got Stephon Castle.
Yeah, I love Stephon Castle.
Donovan Clingan, the 7'1" center from UConn national champion last year. And then you got like, you know, diamonds in the rough kind of with Tyrese Proctor, Australia's own, playing at Duke. And then you can even add a guy like Rob Dillingham into the mix there. Obviously, he's not going to go number 1, but, you know, if he continues to have the season that he's having and continues to show NBA traits and playing with efficiency, then there's no reason why he can't push himself into the lottery. And
shout out my boy Khalil Ware. Surefire, number 1 pick right there. Now, hopefully lottery though. Shout out Oregon, baby.
And even a guy like, who was I going to mention? There was another guard and it just slipped my mind.
DJ Wagner?
No, not DJ.
He's fallen off a cliff though.
Yeah, sure. He has. No, Reed Shepherd, sorry. The guy I was talking to you before the episode started. 6'2" guard from Kentucky, coming off the bench. He's bringing back shades of Devin Booker and, you know, Tyler Hero. Not necessarily the same physical makeup because Reed Shepherd's 6'2" and the other 2 guys are 6'6", but the same kind of you know, flamethrower from 3. You know, he's got absolutely pure jump shot. One of the best defenders in the entire country at 6'2". And he's pretty much leading this scoring off the bench for Kentucky. That just says a lot. And we know the history with Kentucky guards, how good they've turned out in the NBA. Tyrese Maxey, Tyler Hero, Jamal Murray, SGA, D-Book, John Wall. The list goes on and on. I could rattle off a few more names. Yeah, exactly. So I think there's always positive signs there. So anyone who obviously gets drafted from Kentucky is obviously looking like a decent NBA prospect at that. So I think Reed Shepherd will probably push his name up into contention as a lottery pick as well, but just have to see how the season plays out. But in terms of Isaiah Collier, I think, you know, if the Wizards do get the number 1 pick, I think we have to take him. He'll be our point guard of the future. And then, you know, couple that with Bilal Coulibaly, a guy like Denny Avdia, and then Kyle Kuzma, who I think we should keep around despite the fact, you know, people say he doesn't play the right way. He's turned the corner in terms of his playmaking, and that's the next point we're going to go to because it's on the list here. And Marcus, I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, so going off Collier, I guess, you mentioned the Wizards right there. Kyle Kuzma, not a fan of this guy, to be honest, although his scoring production is high. Look, although you mentioned, yeah, you think they probably should keep Kuzma long-term, I don't know.
Maybe not long term.
The fact that they showed loyalty for him and then he kind of like looked around, it's a bit iffy to me. Like he went to where they paid him the most, and fair enough, and I guess the load like production wise, to me he cares a lot about scoring. Well, he gets 20 plus shots a night in Washington. I'm not going to go that in on him because obviously he's having a good year, and the whole takeaway for this was actually about his playmaking and his increase there. He's averaging like 6 assists per game in Washington, which is like a career high. He averages like 4 assists across his career. So that's a good sign, I guess. But the Wizards' record, I mean, it's not too good. You could argue these are empty stats. But at the end of the day, I'm not a believer really in empty stats. I think he is having a good year. Even though I'm not a fan, I think I can admit Kyle Kuzma is having a career best year. I don't think he will be an all-star. I think it's damn near the closest thing to an all-star level. 23 points per game, 6 assists. He's shooting 47% from the field. You know, he's playing career basketball, and I think credit to him because as a Lakers fan, I was kind of on the side where I didn't think he could adapt to a system, and that's why he kind of left LeBron and AD. Even though he won a championship, to go somewhere else so he can produce without the cost of winning. But I think he's bought into the Wizards system, even if they don't really have a system. He's willing to make that extra pass and willing to get 6 assists per game. So that's a positive sign for not only Kuzma, but for the Wizards alike. And I think, I just have to give credit when credit's due. And I think Kyle Kuzma deserves a little bit of a round of applause for what he's doing this season.
Perfect summary, but I'm just going to add on a few things. So in like the last stretch of games, I'll just let you know what his assist numbers were. So he had 13 assists against Milwaukee, 10 assists against Charlotte, 4 against the Bucks again, 8 against Atlanta, 8 against Detroit, and 6 against Orlando. So from that power forward position to be passing the ball the way he has and getting his teammates involved, as much slander as we get for saying that Kuzma's a selfish player, could he be stat padding? Oh, for all we know, maybe. But at the end of the day, he's still swinging the rock. He's still getting his teammates open shots, good looks. So, yeah, I think for as much as we slander him, comparing him to a Jordan Poole kind of player, that they're both selfish, I think he has bought in as much as he can to the system and to Washington Wizards basketball. And at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is we suck. And like Kyle Kuzma playing career best basketball is still not going to change the course of your team. He needs to be a second or third option moving forward. But at the end of the day, for him to turn the corner and know that he can play at this level, it's promising for us Wizards fans. But we'll just have to see how the rest of the year plays out and whether he still continues to buy in on both sides of the floor, especially as a willing playmaker. But I'll move on to the next point. And although they took an L today, the Clippers finally look like they've turned it around with Harden. I mean, they were at one point before the last couple of games. I think they were 4-1 before they lost to the Nuggets. Was it? Did they beat the Nuggets?
They did beat the Denver Nuggets.
Oh, sorry, my bad then.
Actually, let me check.
I'll get it up on reel. I might have been a oversight.
They lost the Nuggets by 9. But with that being said, they beat the Mavericks, who obviously are having a pretty good year, by about 19. They defeated the Clippers. Sorry, not the Clippers. Yeah, the Clippers defeated the Clippers. Well done, champ. Great summary there. No, they beat the Kings by about 13.
That's right. It was the Kings that they got up against. My bad.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are 2 huge wins. Dallas and the Kings. Give me a spell, Jesus.
But I think the most concerning part, even though the Clippers have started to turn the corner, I think it's the play of PG in my eyes. He's been pretty lackluster in the last 2 or 3 games. I think against the Mavericks, he had like 5 points or 6 points, whatever it was. And then today, I think he only had like 10 or 11. He wasn't shooting the ball awfully well. So, I feel like even though one guy turns it around, for example, James Harden starting to play great basketball, Russell Westbrook buying in, coming off the bench, and that game against Dallas where he was going at Luka, it was like vintage Russ again. And then even Kawhi, like, he's money from that mid-range. Anytime he steps in, every time I see him pull up for that awkward-looking mid-range jump shot, it's just wet. And I think they're starting to, like I said, find that chemistry. But I think you can't have one of those 3 or 4 guys not performing to the level that we expected them. Obviously, there's only one basketball at the end of the day, but for a guy like Paul George, with the amount of efficiency we expect of him and the amount of talent and shot creation and overall basketball nous that he does possess, for him to play the way he has the last couple of games, it is concerning. But I mean, like, at least they're winning games. They started off 0-5, 0-6 with Harden in the lineup. So the fact that they are starting to win and it's capable and proven that they can actually get wins on the board with all these guys on the same team, it's a good sign for them. But I think they just got to close out some of those games against these playoff contending teams if they really want to be taken seriously out west and in the entire league. But like I said, at least they're starting to slightly turn the corner anyways.
Yeah, as they say, clip gang don't bang, something like that.
I don't know if that's right.
Something like, no, it's like,
maybe it is. I don't know.
Something like that. That sounded really, but anyway,
pause.
But Clippers, obviously 4 All-Stars. They should figure it out. 4 guys who want to buy in. Ultimately, they want to win. So, not much else to say. But I'll move on to another team, the Boston Celtics. And it's not like they've been playing bad. In fact, they haven't at all. But it's just typical Boston luck. Kristaps Porzingis, once again, dude's made of a wine glass. He just falls and breaks every single time. I think over the past 2 days, I think I'm putting up like Wilt Chamberlain numbers in the bar. Would have broken like 20 or so glasses already. Cut my hand. I don't know if you can see that, but there it is. Bit of glass in there. But anyway, Kristaps Porzingis, yeah, going down, always seems to go down. No surprise. He, to me, is the X factor for that team, and it's worrying because you got Al Horford in the front court and you got Luke Cornett. There's not really much else really there in the front court if KP goes down. So to me, he's the X factor for them to win, and it's not really the greatest sign with him going down. But in terms of play, I have nothing to say about the Celtics. Obviously, regular season team, they're always got to, be consistently a really good team. So, yeah, that had to be a takeaway because KP getting injured, good news, that doesn't exist,
I like that Horford came in and knew that he had to step up, even though it was against the Bulls. He had like an absolute ripper game, 16 points, 9 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, plus 18 in the box score and shot 6 of 8 from the field. So really efficient, really, really productive play from Al Horford. And at least we know what we can expect. He is getting on in age. He is obviously not the same prime Al Horford that we saw in Atlanta all those years ago. But we know that we can, Celtics fans can still rely on him to play his role, play his part. You ideally don't want him to be playing 28, 30 minutes a night, especially as your starting option. And obviously Porzingis, I did mention this at the start of the season in one of the hot takes. Not only should he be the second option, but if he doesn't play and he's out for the season or, he's out for extended periods of time with his durability, that's going to hurt the chances for the Boston Celtics to win come playoff time.
I think that was both, to be fair.
Yeah, well, both of us. I don't know. It was a collective thing anyway,
sure.
At the end of the day. But the fact of the matter is he's really important to that team in terms of his, mismatch that he creates on that side of the ball, being 7'3", having to try to defend him all the way out to the 3-point line. That pick and roll tandem that he has going with Jaylen Brown, that chemistry is through the roof. And I just think we just need to see him consistently on the court night in, night out if the Boston Celtics want to be there or thereabouts. I mean, they'll be around that mark no matter what without him, but I think he's the difference maker for them winning a championship and then obviously not coming home with the Larry O'Brien trophy. But just have to see how it plays out. Hopefully it's not serious, and I don't think it'll keep him out long term, but those ones can be a little bit of an issue come going forward in time with the calf strains, and then his soft tissues sort of can always linger, especially on a guy who's 7'3". But going on to my last point anyway, it's about Draymond Green and his antics, and they're questionable, and it's not a great look for not only his personal brand, but I feel like he's kind of tarnishing his legacy. I mean, if he did have any legacy, obviously he does, but a lot of it's like I want to go in on him. I want to say he kind of rode the coattails of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. At the end of the day, I think without him, though, they don't win a chip, regardless of how legendary KD was. Steph were in the playoffs last year, and Klay Thompson even chiming in, in a lot of those championship runs and any of those additional role players, like a guy like Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, that sort of stuff.
GP, baby.
Yeah, GP as well. But I feel like Draymond, he had the opportunity at one point to leave, go back to his home state in Michigan, play for the Detroit Pistons. I think they threw him like a 4-year, $80 million deal all those years back. He declined it. And I feel like had he gone there, we wouldn't have seen the same version as Draymond as we see with the Warriors. I feel like, he gets a lot of his legacy inflated by those guys. I'm not taking away from Draymond either, because he had that massive game against the Cavs, against the Warriors. Fred, he plays for the Warriors. Against the Cavs, and, he had that 29-point game in an elimination game, and, if it wasn't for that suspension, maybe they take home that championship, but I still think what he's doing, choke holding people, just being really talking a lot of shit, just being vocal, just being like, just relax, dude. Like you're starting to get to that age now where you're not impacting games like you used to. He's actually shooting a career.
That's wild. Draymond on his podcast will literally post a video. It's like, why the Golden State Warriors are struggling. Like, I just find that so funny. As a cool member of that team, you'll see like right after the game, the next day, Draymond's already on it. He's like, oh, the secrets to why the Warriors are struggling. Like, bro, to be like, you just put someone in a chokehold. You can't be posting that when you're literally getting teched out of games, ejected. And then the fact that he goes on and he talks about Azar Thompson and he's like, oh, nobody's really talking about Azar. Like, are we looking at what he's doing? Are you kidding me? Like, he's the type of dude who tweets out, he looks at Twitter, he finds the most like trending topic, and then he's like, we're not going to act like Azar Thompson isn't in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Like, bro, what?
Yeah, who was doubting him in the first place? Everyone was aware of it. And like, if anything,
he's just a mastermind.
but I will give Draymond one bit of credit this year, even though it's a small sample size. He is shooting a career best from three-point land, I should say, 46.4% from the 3-point line. He's dialed in on that side of the ball, but I just feel like he's lost that step. He's lost that, ability to be as impactful as he was once upon a time. And I feel like father time and age is catching up with a lot of these guys on this Warriors roster besides Steph Curry. So, I mean, we just need to have Draymond still be Draymond, but just cut the antics out, just get back to trying to impact your team and playing winning basketball. And I know people are probably going to come at me and say, well, that's what Draymond's about. He's the glue guy. He's the guy that's meant to go out there and ruffle a few feathers. But like, it's almost been detrimental to what the Warriors are trying to do right now, because him being out cost them, I reckon. And if he was in the lineup, then maybe they take a few of those games and, they're not in the position they're in right now. But at the end of the day, he's just got to play less selfish style of basketball, not think of himself all the time in terms of, like behavior.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I still remember one of the funniest videos I've ever seen was when he was going at Herb Jones, and Herb Jones was like, not deterred by it at all. And then Herb Jones just points to the scorer's table, and he's like, your coach is about to sub you out. And then he goes up to Steve Kerr and he starts going like, no, keep me in, coach, keep me in. You're leaving me in. You're not subbing me out. And then Steve Kerr ended up like listening to him, but it was so funny. Herb's just pointing. He's like, Herb, he doesn't talk much. And he's just like, it was so funny. But like I said, cut the antics out, Draymond. Focus on playing the right way for your team, and I think you'll be way more impactful than what you are right now. You're almost being a detriment to your teammates and to the organization right now.
I believe we talked about this earlier. We won't do team play of the week right now. We'll save it for last, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, or do you want to do biggest surprise disappointment last?
We can do biggest surprise disappointment last. Let's change it up a bit. Let's
so kick it off with player of the week?
100%.
Okay, so we'll kick this one off in the West. It's hard not to go the route of Nikola Jokic. I know we've given it to him before, but he's just that good. Like, probably should have been MVP last season. It's a debate. I mean, I'm not against Joel Embiid's stance, but yeah, what Jokic is doing without Jamal Murray, obviously, it's insane. Like 32, 10, and 15, 39, 11, and 9, 38, 19, and 8. If that's not a week worthy of NBA Player of the Week in the West, I don't really know what is. Like, we were going to give it to D-Book initially because he had a couple really good games. Struggled today, though. But I just think overall, what Jokic is doing, Nuggets have recently, they had their little backseat where they were losing a couple games, but they're back on the winning track. And I just think Jokic obviously is the main core for that team, doing usual Jokic things, scoring efficiently, passing really well, rebounding. Typical Jokic at the highest level, MVP worthy. Once again, how could we not put Jokic as Player of the Week?
And it's no secret, Jamal Murray comes back for his first game back yesterday, and he doesn't have the best shooting night, 4 of 14, but he had 16, 6, and 6. And I think just having that dynamic with Jokic out on the court, that 1-2 punch that they do have, and just that two-man game, whether Jokic is the roller or whether he's the ball handler, I think it just creates a lot of mismatch nightmares. And it doesn't mean that Jokic now has to shoot 31 shots a night, which we spoke about in the last episode. Like, that's not what we want and expect from Nikola Jokic, and not what he wants to be doing night in, night out. So it's no secret they got that result against the Rockets. And I think as Jamal Murray gets his conditioning and his legs back under him, gets confidence back in his body, I think that's going to be a scary sight. But yeah, like you said, no secret, Nikola Jokic is the Player of the Week, and just the numbers on the season are absolutely remarkable as well. I'll pull this up because it's well worth shouting out. So for the year, he's averaging 29 points per game, 13 rebounds, 29 points, ranks 8th in the league. The rebounds are first. He's 9.2 assists per game, are third in the league, and he's averaging 1.2 steals, shooting 57% from the field, 80% from the free-throw line. The only downside in his game at the moment is his three-point percentage, which is down to 31%. But besides that, he's basically the best player in the world right now, and single-handedly helping that Denver Nuggets team get back on track. And without him, it'd be a mad struggle, because that bench depth that we spoke about in the last episode, it's definitely going to hurt them in the long run. And we might actually, in fact or cap, bring up a specific player that we think may have a possible place on the Denver Nuggets. Whether it will happen, but I think, it is a good fit and it could be something that they potentially explore. But we'll leave that for that segment anyway. But moving on to the player of the week in the East, and it's none other than the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I did it in his Nigerian. That's actually how you pronounce his name. He's on his birth.
Say it again.
Antetokounmpo. Because in Greek, they don't have they don't have D, so they use NT, and then they don't have B, so they use MP. So hence why his name is Antetokounmpo, which sounds more Greek. But if you look at his birth name and the name on his official passport, it's actually the way I pronounce it then. So it's pretty crazy. But moving on to him, I think it's no secret he's really stepped up his game, and it's a big reason why the Bucks have sort of turned around this season from where we initially slated them, and how we were obviously dissecting their play with him and Dame in the lineup. But if I go into his last week, I think it's
Today he went nuts. I know they lost to the Chicago Bulls, and maybe it's not the biggest scoring outburst, but he had 5 blocks, 26 points, and 14 rebounds.
Yeah, and then 6 days ago against Washington, he had 31 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, 11 of 19 from the field. And then to go on to that, and then had 33 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists against the Blazers. And against the Miami Heat, he had 33 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals and a block. And he's shooting efficiently. And I think getting to the foul line, making his foul shots, I think that was an early struggle that he had to start the season. But he's turned that around. And I think, like I said, no secret that the Blazers are starting to, the Bucks. I was looking at the Blazers scoreline. The Bucks, there's no secret that the Bucks are actually playing better basketball and, hitting wins on the board now and, creeping up in the Eastern Conference standings despite the loss today. So well-deserved player of the week for both of those guys. But I'll move on to the team of the week, and I'll get you to start off here with the Western Conference.
Okay, so we touched on Nikola Jokic and Giannis, and we'll make this short and sharp because we don't really need to go into extremities too much because we've already touched base on who these teams have kind of been. Well, not the Nuggets, but I think earlier we might have. So they beat the Denver Nuggets is our Western Conference team of the week. We did this together. They beat the Clippers, Rockets, Spurs. Obviously, the Rockets are flying right now. And the Clippers found some form, and obviously they start to click. So that is a very impressive win, especially Jamal Murray was out. I think AG was out, Aaron Gordon. So that's another key, position player. Aaron Gordon's arguably the most valuable role player in the entire league. That's my opinion. Maybe you guys agree. I don't really know. Don't really care. Nah. But I think, so those are 2 massive outs, and Jokic's production is just, insane. How could we not put him as team of the week? We were going to do the Phoenix Suns, but couldn't really do that as they had a pretty bad loss today. And the teams that they did beat, we feel like at least they were supposed to beat those teams. So Denver has to be our Western Conference team of the week.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to really add much more to that anyway, so I think you summed it up. But moving on to the team of the week in the East, and just like our player of the week, it's none other than Giannis's Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, like we mentioned, they had a loss today to the Chicago Bulls, which it was a bit unfortunate, but in terms of their overall production and the last week and a bit, they basically beat the Wizards, beat the Blazers, beat the Heat, and lost today to the Bulls. But I think they're starting to turn the corner, like I said, and starting to play basketball the right way. And Brook Lopez and a lot of these guys who are forming part of that, rotational, lineup that the Milwaukee Bucks do possess. Guys like Malik Beasley, Marjon Beauchamp, even guys further down the rotation, Andre Jackson, Marjon Beauchamp, who else? Pat Connaughton, guys of that nature. But I think Brook Lopez is the key. If he can lock in defensively, really anchor that defense, that drop coverage that the Bucks play, and then obviously still be Splash Mountain, as we like to obviously refer to him as. I think they're going to be scary, like I said, and I think they're a well-deserved Eastern Conference team of the week based off what they did besides their loss to the Chicago Bulls today. But we'll move on now anyway to our biggest surprise and disappointment of the week, and we'll start off with our team. And I think it's no secret we started the top of the show with this particular team, and for a team to be currently on the longest active winning streak in NBA as of today, it's the Detroit Pistons. They're 2-16, 2-17 actually. Yeah, it's not looking great. We've sort of really touched on it at the start of the show. Like They don't really have a true identity. They kind of drafted a very confusing sort of set of players, you know what I mean, or acquired a lot of different players through, you know, the free agency and the draft that sort of doesn't really make sense with what they're trying to create. There's potential there, but I just think, in terms of how they started the year, the way Jalen Duren took off and, you know, Cade started the year, we thought like, damn, the Pistons would genuinely be a contender here. Well, not even a contender, but just like be a sneaky playing team. But then just the way they've been playing, whether it's Monty Williams' coaching, whether it's, you know, disgruntled players in the organization, I don't know what's going on, but it's safe to say they are the biggest disappointment, and I don't think we can harp on it any more than we already did at the start of the show.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about the Pistons, besides the fact that, just a whole lot of like I said before, it's last chance you in the NBA. Bunch of guys who, you know, we'd ride on their potential and upside for so long, but ultimately this could be a lot of their last stops, which is kind of sad to see, but maybe we'll reflect on this team in years like we kind of did with the Trust the Process, original OG 76ers team with guys like, you know, MCW, Nerlens,
Tony Roten.
Tony Roten was the man back in the day. There's so many guys there that, you know,
Evan Turner.
I forget, one of my favorite players growing up, just because he was on the NBA top 10 every single night. KJ McDaniels, I thought this guy was...
I remember him from Clemson.
Bro, he was... his bounce was just... He was so tough, but like tough as in highlights.
And that was number one on the NBA.com.
I love that guy to death. He does the Australian NBL, which is... I find that weird. But
it was like this montage of him, like, as the years went on, he just shortened it every single time. And we're like, he's like, and that was number one on NBA.com's top 10. And then he just goes, he doesn't even say it. But like, KJ McDaniels was that man, bro. He was sick. But yeah, that whole team had like a lot of different, you know, pieces that at once upon a time we thought like, I really like this
Stauskas as well.
Yeah. But it's just, like I said, going back to the Pistons, I think they do have enough talent and potential. They just got to put it together and work out where they're going to want to take the direction of the franchise. Because like I said, they just got a bunch of players now with like positional log jams and kind of like no direction in my opinion. But
one thing I will say though, like we touched base a little bit before, they do have Bojan, and obviously for contending teams, he's still, no matter injured or not, like he's still an asset and they can get a lot of value back because he's the difference between winning an NBA championship to some teams like the Lakers, Denver Nuggets. There's plenty of teams who, even like if you really want to compete and you're like the young team like the OKC Thunder, you got 1 million first round picks, like you honestly could make that move. I'm not going to say it would be worth it, but it might not be so bad when you have that many first rounders and you're already a competitive team out west. A lot of teams
him adding a bit of playoff punch in terms of like, you know, he's played in some big games in the playoffs. I remember that game. Do you remember when he was on the Pacers?
Yeah.
And he played against the Cavs and he just went off one game against like that's the kind of potential we know with that. And he's probably a better player now than he was once upon a time.
What, 20 a game last season?
Yeah, 100%. He was sick, man. But I just think, in terms of him being on the Thunder off the bench, you know, providing that scoring punch that, you know, that second unit might need. Not that they don't have anything like that on the second unit, but that could be a good landing spot for a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic. And it's a team in the West; they're not really competing with them directly.
I think could really like so many. Every NBA team could use him. I'm like, that's not even a stretch. Like every contending team, it's so close this year. Like the Clippers have 4 guys, and we're talking about how they're like struggling. When you have PG, Kawhi, Harden, Russell Westbrook, heck. Like, that's how you know the NBA is. It's got to be a tough year to win. I know we say that every single year, but
it just gets tougher and tougher the more the years go by.
We have no idea who is going to be in the like championship race. Like, Bucks are struggling. Denver have had their struggles despite being really good. Dallas look legit, but they've never gone that far to to the finals. Mm. Dallas is another team. He would really fit next to Luka. So many teams, like I said.
100%. In terms of our surprise, though, we didn't really have a surprise. We were going to put the Phoenix Suns, but I think we kind of expect them to be good. We even though they didn't start the season well, and they obviously came along without Bradley Beal and without Booker in the lineup, Kevin Durant, like we mentioned in the last episode, playing arguably career best basketball. We thought we wouldn't include him in because we sort of expect them to be good. So there was no real surprise in this past week. It kind of like it was a bit of a seesawing kind of win, loss, win, loss. There wasn't one clear-cut team besides the Magic, who we mentioned last episode as well, that have sort of really stood out to us. So we're going to scrap the biggest surprise for this week, but we'll move on to our biggest surprise in terms of player. And my biggest surprise for player is, got it here, sorry guys, is Keontae George and DeAndre Hunter. I think Keontae being given the keys basically as the starting point guard of the future. He came into the league as obviously from Baylor as a shot maker, as a guy we expected to be more of a scorer. But what I've really been impressed with in his time that he's obviously taken the reins as that lead guard with the Jazz is his playmaking ability and his ability to dish the rock. I think he's leading the league in rookies for assists and total assists as well. And just the way he sees the floor, his comfort level, I should say, in the pick and roll. That's impressed me thus far. Even without looking at the box score, I just think he's come on leaps and bounds, despite the fact that Jazz are a bit up and down. And the other guy's DeAndre Hunter. I mean, DeAndre Hunter dropped like 3 straight 23, 24-point games. And it's a guy we've always been a bit frustrated with because I feel like he does have that ability to be a genuine, star in this league. As I'm not saying like superstar level, or I'm not saying all-star every single year, but a guy that can be an important piece on any roster or on a championship contender, whether it's like a third option or on a sort of worse off team, like a second option even. He shows glimpses and then he goes missing. So the fact that he strung 3 games together, he's had injury issues over the course of his career as well, but we saw the upside when he came into the league, and the potential he showed in that Final Four and that championship run with Virginia, which got him drafted so high at pick 4. So it's good to see him piece it together. He didn't have the best game today, but I think overall what we've seen in the last 3 games, for me at least, I've been pretty impressed with. So for that reason, I have both of those guys as my biggest surprise for the past week.
I saw something. I think it was completely fake, but it wouldn't even surprise me. It was like, Greg Popovich wants the Spurs to target DeAndre Hunter because he sees him as like a Kawhi Leonard type of player. No way that was real. But it wouldn't surprise me just because of his skill set. 3-and-D, can facilitate in the mid range, like you said.
7'1" wingspan, 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah.
Shoot the 3 ball is
just unlucky with injuries over the course of his career. But if he was a second star, like he should be for the Hawks. Honestly, should be. Just really unlucky with those injuries. But I love that pick. Absolutely love that pick. But I'll move on to my surprise player of the week. And it had to be Cole Anthony. For someone who I never thought... I viewed him as a volume scorer, don't get me wrong. Someone who takes a high volume of shots every single night. I didn't think he could do it this efficiently though. 44% from the field over the course of the season. Then 38% from threes, the main one. As an undersized guard, that's terrific. I think he scored 25 points last game, and then he had 30 the game before. And then he's just stuffing the stat sheet. 6 rebounds, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. The guy's just doing it all right now. Magic are winning. That comes to me as an absolute surprise. And then the other one, shout out to D Rose. Someone who wasn't even in the Memphis rotation until recently, has really just come into his own. Obviously, they got, I think, their second win of the year. And D Rose was a major part in that. He's playing about 19, 20 minutes. He had 17 one game. He had 14 in another. I think he had 13 in another. He's just, he's doing D Rose-like things that he did at, the Knicks, at the Pistons, at the Wolves. His game certainly matured since he was that MVP player. We all know that. We all know he's become more of a shooter. But I just think D Rose, he deserves to be on that court. Always has, always will, sorry. But he finally got that opportunity, and it's not really surprising to me. I just really wanted to shout out D Rose because who doesn't love to see D Rose succeed, I guess.
100%, especially, how much of a legacy he does have, despite the fact he obviously had a lot of injuries. The fact of the matter is he's still the youngest MVP in league history. And, I think, people were sad, obviously, how everything played out over the course of his career, but he's had his ups and downs, but it's good to see that, that veteran resurgence and that he has adapted his game enough where he can stay in the league and stay relevant. So a shout out D Rose. But we'll go back to the biggest disappointment for player. I didn't want to do back-to-back biggest surprise, biggest disappointment. So I thought we'll leave this one to last. But for me, my biggest disappointment for a player this week. I was going to go down Killian Hayes' path, but he had 23 points for the Knicks today, against the Knicks today, I should say. He
always does this. Every time he's doing something bad, bang, he pops up and drops 30 and 14, and then another 5 games, 6 points, 5 points, 4.
2 points,
it's just false hope every single time for Killian, and it just frustrates me. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest.
Nah, that's fair, bro. I don't blame you because, I think we see the glimpses with him and how good he can be in terms of, that potential that Pistons saw in him to draft him as a top 10 prospect. But at the end of the day, he just doesn't show it often enough. And for a guy to be playing nearly 27, 28, 30 minutes a game, he's sometimes just doing cardio out there almost. But in terms of my disappointment, though, it's going to be Grant Williams. And although he obviously is a role player at the end of the day, and we don't expect him alongside Luka and Kyrie to drop 25 points a night, that's not his game. But for a guy who obviously came in with a lot of hype about his ability to knock down 3-point shots, he started the season off really, really well. But the past week, he had 6 points on 2 of 9 shooting, 3 boards, 2 assists. Then he had 5 points on 2 of 3. And then the other day, he had 0 of 5 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, no points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I get that he's still probably playing his role much like a PJ Tucker, obviously, lockdown defending, ability to be versatile on that side of the ball, which is what they brought him in for, kind of like a Dorian Finney-Smith replacement. You can almost add Derrick Jones Jr. to that mix in terms of what they brought him in for, in terms of his athleticism, his length, and playing that Dorian Finney-Smith role that's been missing for the past, season and half a season, I should say, to nearly a full season. But yeah, I think Grant Williams, we expect more from him. The reason why the Mavericks paid you a certain amount, you're just going to be better. And it's lucky that they have other role players, like I said, that can step up on any given night. A Josh Green, a Dante Exum, shout out, who's played some really good basketball lately. And then, I said, and even a guy, like I said, with Derrick Jones Jr. and trying to think of a couple of other guys from that. Like Tim Hardaway, obviously he's starting, but he sometimes comes off the bench as well, which he's predominantly done this year. So, they've got a lot of different pieces that can step up on any given night if Grant Williams isn't living up to, the expectations. But at the end of the day, we do expect better from him, especially coming from such a prestigious organization who's, all about winning and, playing basketball the right way, which is the Boston Celtics. And I'm not saying he isn't, but I'm just his production just isn't up to the standards we expect.
Okay, so for my biggest disappointment, originally I was going to go on the route of DeJounte Murray, but then today he had a really good game, and I thought, look, 2 bad games, 2 good games. I can't put him as my biggest disappointment. And to be honest, you look at those games, he had 6 points one game, he had 13 points, but he didn't really shoot really well. He had 1 assist, so I was leaning towards DeJounte, but then today he came out, had 24, and he's back to DeJounte-like things, a couple steals in there as well. So I'm going to keep it real. I don't fully have a biggest disappointment this week. It was really, really hard to, select one, but I will do this. This might not count as biggest disappointment, but I know we talked about the Pistons, but my biggest disappointment is a coach. It's Monty Williams.
I like that, a little bit of a curveball. I like it.
Someone who's gone to the finals, someone who has a legacy of being a really valuable coach in this league. Coach Chris Paul, throughout his career at New Orleans, at Phoenix, great things. All I could hear about from Pistons fans this offseason when we did make those videos were, how could you have us there? Or why do you think Ivy and Azar won't work, this and that? Well, Monty's placed Ivy on the bench, and fair enough. I thought that was the right move, but he's playing well, and he hasn't really adjusted his minutes. I think that's disappointing. I think the fact you're riding or dying still with Killian, I think that's disappointing. I think Cade's inefficiencies are disappointing. I think
utilization of James Wiseman. Sorry, I'll just butt in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, utilization of Wiseman, disappointing. To me, Azar, Jalen Duran are shining lights, but I don't think that the record that they have should be. I don't think they should be good, but this bad, it's really, really bad. I don't think he should have had them in this position. And the fact that some of you guys were telling me, no, we're a playing team at the least. Well, what? Look now, nah. I'm not going to be that guy, but I think it's disappointing for sure.
But it just goes to show, you look at Udoka, they only really added Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, and Jeff Green's experience. But pretty much most of that roster, and they lost Kevin Porter Jr., but most of that roster is pretty much the exact same roster that they had from last year, bar a couple of players.
They just need vets.
But then what I'm saying is like, yeah, Pistons need vets, but what I'm saying is that even it just shows how much more valuable Udoka's coaching is compared to what Monty Williams is doing right now with the younger group. Maybe Udoka just gets the better out of a young group, and because Monty Williams hasn't had that over the course of his career, having to deal with a lot of young guys, young pieces, a really young roster, maybe he hasn't been able to adapt to that, and it's maybe been a struggle for him. I don't know. I'm not trying to badmouth Monty Williams.
It means is he a bad coach. He's been struggling with this group.
Yeah, 100%. But that pretty much wraps up that segment there. But we'll move on now to one of our favorite segments. It's probably our favorite segment of the episode, of the show, I should say, and that is fact or cap. I've got my cap on today because I don't think there's a lot of cap in this room. Nah, fact or bucket hat. Nah, I'm joking. But we'll start it off anyway. And Marcus, I'll let you lead us off and do the honors here, brother.
Okay, so the first one, this might seem a bit controversial. Might seem, yeah. What am I saying? It might seem a little bit controversial. Well, is that hard? But CJ McCollum is the most important piece to this Pelicans team in terms of if they want to reach the expectations or their full ceiling of winning an NBA championship. I think CJ is the most important piece. Is that fact or is that cap? Really, really, really think about it. Really think about it.
It's tough. It's really tough. I still think it's Zion. I'm going to say cap.
Facts.
Yeah, I'm going to say cap. I do believe CJ's impact is a lot more underrated than people give it credit for maybe. And, I think maybe they've forgotten how good CJ McCollum can be come playoff time as a player in general in this league because, there's no secret he's had his injury troubles as well past couple of seasons ever since he's been traded out to Pelicans land. But in terms of, we know what to expect with Zion. Like you look at yesterday's game as an example, 11 from 11 from the field, that high efficiency when he's a freight train coming into the lane, no one's stopping him, and it just collapses the defense. And then having guys that can hit 3-point shots as well, and then the return of Trey Murphy the third as well. That's so important as well. I think he's arguably one of their more important role players, and you throw in the likes of Herb Jones to complement the defensive side of the ball, kind of anchor that defense, and you got the veteran presence. Jordan Hawkins, shout out. I was going to mention him. I think he's been an absolute steal in the draft. Knows his role the right way. He catch and shoot. He can impact the game on the score sheet without having to take a lot of dribbles, have to, have the ball for 20 seconds of the possession. It's in and out of his hands within a split second, but, it's the same amount of points on the stat sheet at the end of the day. And I think he just locks in on the defensive side of the ball, and his athleticism is underrated. But what they've got going together in that rotation, return of Jose Alvarado, the pest, we know how
they're legitimately a championship contender.
They are. But it's always a question mark of one player on that team being unhealthy. It could be Zion, it could be BI, it could be CJ, it could be Trey Murphy, and Herb. Any of those guys go down, and immediately it just takes away from the flow, the chemistry that team has got going. Because Trey Murphy's so important as a spark plug off the bench in terms of his offense. You can start at times, and then you lose a guy like Zion. You've lost that defensive mismatch that teams have to scout heavily. And then BI with his versatility, if he's not playing, it just makes that 4 spot that he plays from a lot more easy to guard because you don't have it's more of a predictable skill set for the guy that's probably going to fill in the void there. So I think it's cap only because any of those guys go down, it's almost see you later to the Pelicans championship contention. But I think as long as, obviously in my eyes, I still believe it's Zion. But I think if any of those guys go down, it's going to be,
They're all as important as they are to each other.
Yeah, correct.
CJ goes down, BI, Zion. Yeah, I get you.
But I'm going to say cap just because I still think it's Zion because we haven't seen enough of him, and it showed how much it impacted. They were the first seed before his injury. He goes down. They have a complete capitulation. And I think there's no secret that Zion being out of that lineup just completely changes the dynamic. So I'm going to say cap just because, in my opinion, it's Zion. But moving on. I was about to get comfortable there, but moving on to the next one, and that's the Pacers should look at exploring trade options for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. Is that fact or cap?
I just don't know what's out there for them to get with those guys. Like, I don't think you go on the route. See, to me, the guys who are available right now, obviously Zach LaVine's the obvious one because that's of recent. Pascal Siakam, I would say. I would say Kyle Kuzma, his value, I think, is at an all-time high, so I think he would be up there. Bogdanovic, obviously. No, that's 4 guys. I don't know. Depends what the Pacers are really looking for, I guess. If they can get a higher caliber dude, or a guy like Pascal Siakam, I don't know if you do both, but obviously I think Miles Turner, that's almost more of an enticing piece than Pascal to me, just because of his versatility, his height, what he brings to the table. Buddy Hield is an interesting one. To me, it really comes down to whether Buddy Hield wants to remain a Pacer or he doesn't. I think if he does, you got to keep that guy around, man, because off the bench, he's just so valuable. Yes, he has his nights where he shoots inefficiently and he doesn't really...
Tonight, exhibit A, I should say.
But he has games where he legitimately takes over in the clutch and he wins games. So it's like, what the worst with Buddy, you get the best with Buddy, and I think the best outweighs the bad. And I think, I don't think you're getting anything more than Buddy Hield's value for him. Unless there's a random name that just goes out there like, heck, Jaylen Brown or something crazy, I think, you make the move. But if not, I think you just keep this team around, and I think Miles wants to be there. That's why he re-signed. I think Buddy, I don't really know the intimacies of it, but if they're all happy in Indiana, and Tyrese is thriving, and Benedict's thriving, and Obi, the whole squad, Miles, I think he's having a career year. I think you just keep that core, and I think you just push towards the playoffs or as far as you possibly can. I think that probably is the playoffs or first, second round. So I'm going to say cap.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade both of them, but I feel like you got to do something because Hallie needs help. Like, he can get it done on any given night, but like sometimes you don't want him taking 27 shots a night, even though he's got that ability to drop 44 like he did tonight or drop 50 on any given night. I think it takes away from his real strong suit of a skill set, which is his ability to pass the rock and get his 15, 16 assists along with his 30-plus points. But if he has to get only 10 assists and score 44 points and have to shoot the ball 28 times a night, that's you take that as an opposition as much as, Hallie drops 44 on your head. If the other guys have sort of been shut out of the game or, having quiet nights, it's the next man up mentality. So I feel like, you need another genuine star or like a co-superstar for Hallie.
Just comes down to what's out there.
Yeah, exactly. And whether they'll be able to attract them to Indiana, because we know that a lot of these guys prefer to go to a bigger market, and Indiana obviously is a bit more of a small market team. And at the end of the day, I don't think I'd want to bring in a guy into that organization that's going to provide trouble or, impact the chemistry or impact the vibe that team's got going on. Yeah, they've gone on a little bit of a slump the last couple of games, but they made the Elite Eight in the in-season tournament. There's a reason why, they're in that bracket right now. It's because they've been playing some excellent basketball. So I think it's a bit of an overreaction, but I've seen Pacers fans on Reddit going off, and even on Reel today, cracking the shits at Buddy Hield and even Miles Turner saying like, rebound the ball, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out. But moving on to the next one, Marcus, and I'll let you take this one away.
Okay, so the next fact or cap, Ja Morant comes back. The Grizzlies are a playoff team or play-in team, or you get what I mean. If they make the play-in, they go to the playoffs. Is that fact or cap, or am I just overreacting about how good Ja Morant really is?
I'm checking the Western Conference standings now. So at the moment, they're 4-13. There's 8 more games of Ja's suspension. So let's say they only win 2 more games, and they're 6-19 come the time when Ja returns. It's an uphill battle. I'm going to say...
He's the GOAT.
I'm going to say cap. As much as I believe in Ja's ability, it's going to take him maybe 5-10 games to get accustomed with the speed of the NBA game again, get his legs under him. He's not injured, so obviously that's not going to be a massive impact. But obviously when you haven't played for an extended period of time since the playoffs last year, it's not going to come back to you right away. But we know what Ja Morant's capable on an NBA court on any given night. So I still think, they do make a push and maybe they do sneak into the play-in, but I don't think they make the playoffs. But that's going to be all dependent on what their record sits come that 25-game suspension coming to an end. But I'm going to say cap for now, just because I haven't seen enough positive signs, especially with Steven Adams being out, Brandon Clark being out. Young guys have gotten minutes, which is a positive thing, but I just don't see.
Oh yeah, he's not it.
Yeah, I think that was a miss on that particular draft pick. And as much as I still think, I'm going to give him his chances, I think we've seen enough of Ziaire Williams now to say that he's not up to the standards of being a starter in the NBA. But I'm going to say cap, just because I don't think they started the season off well enough, obviously, and it's just a bit of a hit to the confidence when you're losing that many games and having that many injuries to start the year. Ja's going to rejuvenate him, and I think the one disappointment, Marcus Smart probably hasn't played to the level we expected him of.
Great mentorship though.
Yeah.
The time out, he's like, these fans come here to watch you guys play, and you'll play like ass. Yeah, something like that.
No, I get it. Like I love the energy, and I love the the fact that he gives everything to any organization he plays in. But at the end of the day, it's he probably hasn't lived up to the expectations we expected of him in terms of the production on the court. So Jaren Jackson, another guy, shooting 30% from the field and 23% from three in the last 3 or 4 games, and just not rebounding the ball to a high level, which he's never really been great at. But in terms of a guy who's nearly 7 foot tall, you got to, with the amount of athleticism, the long arms, you got to be a better rebounder than that. The bright spot in the team, obviously Desmond Bane, playing at an all-star level. He's not going to make it.
He struggles recently though.
Yeah, but in terms of the way he started the season on a whole, you can't take away those the games that he did play to a really high level. So I think there's still positive signs there, but yeah, even with Ja's return, I think it's cap. I don't think they make the playoffs. But moving on to my next one, this is what JJ Redick brought up in his podcast on Old Man and the Three shout out. Jaime Jaquez, he believes, is the third best rookie or the third most impactful rookie in the league outside of Wemby and Chet. Do you agree, fact or cap, Marcus?
Personally, obviously, yes, Jaquez has been playing some amazing games. He's scoring a lot, but I'm still going Azar Thompson. I still think Azar Thompson is the third best rookie that this class has to offer thus far. I think Jaquez has had his games, obviously, but as has Azar. And obviously, Azar's got to get more hype, but with the hype comes a lot more, slander and expectations on Azar's name. But I think if Azar was in Jaquez's position and was drafted where he was, what pick was Jaquez?
18.
Okay. Yeah, I think, say you put Azar Thompson at pick 18, I think the amount of hype he would be getting would be off the charts, but because he was a top 5 pick, obviously, yeah, they got to look at the fact that he can't really shoot yet. But he's had games where he's scoring high 20s. He averages 10 rebounds. He's playmaking well. He's a great shot blocker. He gets steals, and yeah, he might have his scoring struggles, but that's not all to basketball. I think as an overall player, he was in my Rookie of the Year. I think he was my Rookie of the Year pick, so that's how highly I do rate this guy. Jaquez has had his moments, yes. But I don't know, as has Keontae George. So I value those two guys about the same. Yeah, so I don't know who the class, Wemby, Azar, Jaquez, Keontae.
Hawkins.
Yeah, Jordan Hawkins. I think Jordan Hawkins arguably, I sound like a real Jaquez hater. I'm not one. But I think, yeah, Jordan Hawkins, I don't think gets the shine that he deserves because this guy, the Pelicans literally told him, take 13 threes a night. When you get the ball, shoot the ball. That role is so hard to play in the NBA. Not every rookie can just come in to a system and just shoot 13 threes.
I forgot about Brandon Miller as well.
Yeah, Brandon Miller. I don't know. Jaquez is really, really good. I think he might be top 5. I would probably go Wemby. I'd probably go Brandon Miller. I'd probably go Azar Thompson. I would probably go Jordan Hawkins, and then I would probably go Jaquez and then
Chet.
Chet, well,
Chet's not in this draft class. Sorry, that's my fault. That's my fault.
Yeah, if Chet was, I'd probably have him one. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, but in terms of the rookie class, obviously Chet having that red shirt season, is part of it. But yeah, in terms of the draft class, I think that's a follow-up question I'm actually going to ask you. Do you think this draft class could be a top 10 draft class of all time if when it's all said and done?
Okay, so this could look really bad in the long run, me saying this, but my prediction for this class, I think Azar Thompson's a defensive player of the year. I think Wemby, if we're looking at the stakes on the trajectory that he will become, a lot of people will probably be thinking the same. He's probably a MVP of this league. He's probably a rookie of the year, defensive player of the year, NBA champion. So obviously that puts that in that upper echelon of draft classes. And then so you got a defensive player of the year, you got an MVP and one of the all-time grades. That already is above a lot of draft classes. All they really need is for a guy like not Azar, Harkes, Keontae, John Hawkins to be like a, 3-4-time All-Star. Yeah, and then we haven't really seen much of Amen Thompson. And then Brandon Miller, obviously, he's a hell of a talent.
Scoot Henderson.
Scoot, yeah. I haven't given up on Scoot yet. As a half Blazers fan, I think he's slowly showing a little bit more signs. And I don't know if it's hard to judge because I really want to root for Scoot.
Nice rhyming.
Yeah, as a point guard in this league, but yeah, the struggles, like the worst of Scoot hasn't really looked like he's adapted to the NBA level very well, just with the shots that he could take at G League Ignite, translating to the NBA. You're not really going to have the same output with those mid-range jump shots that he did at Ignite because NBA offenses don't really value that as much as they do in the G League or at a lower level. But yeah, I think Brandon Miller, 5-time All-Star, I would say it could be a top 10 just because you got an all-time great. You got two guys who I think will be multiple or 4 to 5-time All-Stars, and then you got a defensive player of the year. And obviously, if you're a defensive player of the year, you got a couple All-Star selections next to your name. So I think top 10 is reasonable.
As long as it's not as bad as 2000, 2006 with like Adam Morrison and all that. Or 2000 with like the best pick was almost Hito Turkoglu or Kenyon Martin went number 1 in that draft. That was it was a shocking draft. So there was a couple there historically that were bad. So as long as it's not as bad as that, I mean, you're already on your way to possibly edging yourself in that conversation. Obviously, 96 is iconic. 2003 is iconic.
97
with Tim Duncan, I think that was a pretty good draft as well. 99, you had Lamar Odom, Jason Terry, Andre Miller, Elton Brand, Steve Francis. Trying to think of the Paul Pierce was 98, sorry. But yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, like that 98 class as well is just really solid. Dirk Nowitzki, Paul Pierce.
2016.
That was Ben Simmons. That was Ingram. Who else was in that? I think it was Julius Randle. Yeah, Julius Randle.
Randle got injured rookie.
Yeah.
Who what? I swear there was D Book. No, that was the next year after.
No, Randle was 2014. Sorry.
When was Cat? 2017.
No, Cat was
2017. It was a year after.
Yeah, 2017. No, 2017 was Markelle. Cat was 2015 then.
2015. So he was before Simmons and.
No. Yes, he was actually. Yeah. It was 2015.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. It was 2015.
So D'Lo was drafted before.
Yeah. Do you remember that ad? Do you remember that ad that came up with the Foot Locker ad? Remember?
With the phone.
Yeah, and he's like, you got a phone, so they were all there before Simmons. Simmons is like,
right, you're right.
Yeah. We had a little bit of a brain fade there. We've been filming for like an hour and a half. I'm normally pretty good with this historical stuff, but it just sort of all came.
Shout out Historic Hoops, baby.
That's it, man. TikTok, 39K, get around it, even though I don't really post on there much now as I used to because of the bench mob taking priority, but we'll get back on that grind as well once soon enough. I'm reading through a few of these Factal Cap questions here, Marcus, and I think based off time, I reckon we'll cut a few of these out just for the purposes of the video. And I don't know, we might be getting locked into this studio because apparently they shut at 10 p.m. and it's approaching 10 p.m. 1 minute away. So
save them for the next step.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get locked in, but maybe we'll leave it on one more. And I think the one we'll leave it on is Terry Rozier, because I did mention we wanted to talk about this.
Terry Rozier at the Charlotte Hornets, obviously he got there, he had his tenure. I feel like he had that year where he almost pushed them into the playoffs. I think they had 44 wins that year. That might have been LaMelo Ball's rookie year or the year before that. But overall, I think championship teams could really value him. Like you have a team in your mind as well. I'll name a couple too. to push for a further championship. Obviously, his two-way ability, he's scrappy on the defensive end, and what he's known for is being, a volume scorer.
Guy who comes up in the clutch on numerous occasions, who's obviously, today just showed with LaMelo Ball's absence, 37 points, 13 assists. His playmaking is underrated as well. But I feel like he's just had a bad rep in terms of his career. I think a lot of the times people see Terry Rozier, they see the tattoos, they see, that vibe that he does give off or possess. So the fact that, also playing on the Hornets, a lot of people can consider what he does as empty stats. But all in all, I think he's still got a lot to give to the to a championship contending team, like I mentioned. And one of the teams I'm going to touch on here is the Denver Nuggets. Although they have a guy similar mold in Reggie Jackson, I think if you add a guy like that, somehow manage to acquire him in a trade, I don't know what you give up. I don't know how he fits in, but I think him as a off the bench kind of player, providing that spark, providing that energy, and that clutch shooting ability, that scoring prowess that we know he's capable of, will just be a really good replacement for a guy like Bruce Brown, who obviously they lost in the free agency period. And although they're not the same kind of player, I think you almost need it at times with Jamal Murray's uncertainty with how his injury is going to progress and whether he's, manages to stay durable. So I think, the Denver Nuggets is a really good option for him. And I don't know, maybe even the Los Angeles Lakers, it could be a shout there, I don't like to say that because I think any player that ends up going to the Lakers always ends up having a down year. I think we don't see the best version of them when they're playing alongside Bron and AD. But yeah, that could be an option. That's something that was talked about for a couple of years prior in the last few seasons. But that's a couple of my teams that I think he could end up being traded to. But the Nuggets one's probably a bit of a stretch just because they do have Reggie Jackson already. But I'll let you round it out now with who you believe Terry Rozier could land on in terms of team going forward.
Obviously, Miami Heat missed out on Damian Lillard. Previously, they were interested in Russell Westbrook, interested in Chris Paul, a bunch of point guards they were interested in, Brad Beal. So I think Terry Rozier is probably the next guy who fits that mold, what they would want. And with that, his defensive ability, he has that where those guys almost don't. So I think the Heat would be interested. I don't know if they would get him, but I think they would pursue him so heavily. Besides that, I think a team like the Hawks, maybe, they could use a second scoring co-star. I don't think DeJounte and Trey will take you any further. I'm not saying you give up DeJounte, although if you did, that would be kind of interesting to see DeJounte and LaMelo Ball with Brandon Miller, big guards, run amok in Charlotte. That would be pretty cool. I think, I don't really know who else. I mean, I know a lot of teams could value Terry. I think the Lakers obviously are going to be calling the phone because they do to everybody, and I think he fits the mold of what LeBron loves, and they pursued him this offseason, so why wouldn't they pursue him right now? The Wolves are another one. I think that could only add to, their playoff push, obviously, and their contention towards a potential championship. Being a fourth seed, he almost establishes them as, a potential front runner to go to the Western Conference Finals. But yeah, like you said before, the Indiana Pacers are they almost should be looking for a co-star with Hallie. And I think, Terry's a guy who can play on the ball really well, but he can also catch and shoot, hit threes really well. So Pacers could. I don't know if he would come off the bench with Mathurin there, being a young star, but that could be an awesome fit too.
But I think we've summed it up pretty perfectly. It's a tough one. I don't think Terry goes anywhere this year just based off how important he is, and with LaMelo Ball's uncertainty with his ankle and, the overall health concerns that we have seen out of LaMelo Ball the past season and a bit. But in terms of, what he's shown and night in, night out and season after season just being a really important player, I think, Terry Rozier could be well on his way to joining a championship contender, but it's only a matter of time. But pretty much going to wrap it up here right now, guys. That's the end of episode 4 of Beyond the Box Score. We had to shorten the ending a little bit there. We were on a bit of a time constraint, but
we'll save the Factal Cap for next ep for sure.
100%.
We do have some gems there, and it would be a waste if we didn't do them.
Yeah, and kind of like just rushing through them and not getting what we really want out of them and a real proper deep dive and analysis. But pretty much that wraps up episode 4. Like I said, if you haven't already done so, hit subscribe. We're 18 away. We're probably going to be at 1,000 by the time this episode does roll out on Spotify and on YouTube. Make sure to also listen to the podcast on Spotify if that's what your preferred method is. But again, ideally, we want you to be on the YouTube, on the channel, subscribing, interacting. Any comments, anything you disagreed with on today's show that we did say, feel free to mention it in the comments. We want all the smoke. We want to interact with you guys. Give us some really analytical breakdowns in the comments. Don't just give us slander. We've seen some really nice comments lately where people really go in like write massive paragraphs, and we do read them and we do respond to them. So shout out to you guys for interaction, and shout out for the love we have seen lately from some random messages on Instagram. And
that was dope. Some dude reached out and he's like, yo, keep going, love the content. He was probably younger than me. That's like, exactly, that made my day absolutely. Like, I don't care if one person, 40, 30, 100, a million, like, the fact that one person enjoyed it gets rid of like 50 million who don't. So shout out to that guy.
100%.
Really appreciated that.
But yeah, for now, that's all we have time for, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure again to have you on the show with us. Yeah, shout out to you guys. Enjoy and stay safe. Peace out, guys. It's been your boy Danko.
It's been Marcus. I'm ready to get the hell out of here. Happy to let's get the hell out of here.
Peace, guys.